10 hut, soldier. Today we fight for glory, for justice, and for Gary.
Ow.
Yes, today I'm taking a look at the highly requested SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom on PS2.
I must be in heaven.
When you guys pointed out that the movie game was similar to this, you really weren't kidding.
Coming at ya.
The abilities, the animations, and the general look and feel of the game are very similar. At a glance, you might even mistake the two.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy!
The main difference though is its structure. While this game does have a linear progression, it's not nearly as regimented as the movie game.
You need more Goofy Goober tokens before I can teach you.
It's a lot more spacious, and unless I'm mistaken, it's the closest thing there is to an open world PS2 SpongeBob game. The question is it better or worse? There's only one way to find out.
Bring it on.
Time to get this sponge ball rolling. Onward, men, to battle.
Welcome to Bikini Bottom, a normally peaceful undersea sanctuary. Today it will be transformed into a theater of pure horror.
The game opens in Bikini Bottom. I mean, obviously. Plankton has created a new duplicator-tron, with which he intends to make an army of robots to ransack the place, and steal the Krabby Patty formula.
Welcome, my perfectly obedient robot army. Hang on, I want to get a photo for my scrapbook. Hey, hello?
However, things go awry when he forgets to activate the lever to make them obey, meaning the robots are rampant.
I made you! No! No! Oh, my good China!
Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Patrick are playing, robots and racehorses, but are getting bored.
Wouldn't it be great if we had real robots to play with, Patrick? I'd name mine Robo Jr. or Zorlon or maybe Frankie.
Yeah, these unreal robots are getting boring.
So Patrick uses what he calls his magic wishing shell to wish for real robots. SpongeBob wakes up next morning to find his house has been trashed and vandalized.
Jerry, did you do that?
And this is where the game begins. In order to progress in the house, we need to find shiny objects. And we're told we need to collect these throughout the game for Mr. Krabs.
You've been, promoted to head shiny object collector.
Wow! A promotion!
That's right, a promotion!
With the square button, SpongeBob attacks by swinging his wand.
Oh my.
That is, his bubble wand. Jumping and pressing the circle button makes SpongeBob perform something called a bubble bounce from above. And by pressing the triangle button, he can perform the bubble bash move. Further moves are later introduced as you progress in the game, sometimes by your good friend Bubble Buddy.
For a bubble, you really get around.
And they are all incredibly familiar. I wonder why.
Seriously, did the developers use a duplicator-tron to make the movie game as well?
To progress in the main game, you need to find golden spatulas. 100 of them if you're gunning for 100% completion.
Only 99 more to go. These spatulas are gonna make me flip my lid. I can feel it.
Much like the Goofy Goober tokens in the movie game, these will unlock new areas of Bikini Bottom for you to explore. In fact, they're so alike, even the animations of SpongeBob and Patrick when they collect a spatula are exactly the same.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy!
Often the golden spatulas require you to complete a specific task first,
Hello, Patrick. I've got a job for you to do.
and certain tasks can only be performed by certain characters. Using a bus stop, you can switch to either Patrick or Sandy, depending on who's available in the level. The bus stops basically work the same way as the Porto heads in the movie game, and interestingly, there are a couple of occasions when you see the Porto heads in this game. You can even enter one of them and, make a quick deposit. No soiled underwear for me!
Fresh like a spring breeze.
Speaking of which, if you receive damage, health can be replenished in this game by collecting fresh pairs of underwear.
I feel like a new sponge.
I think I actually prefer the use of Krabby Patties as health pickups, but the thinking behind this is kind of funny.
Flash, sponge wearing 5 pairs of underwear coming through.
Collecting a pair of golden underwear will also extend your health.
Wow, 6 pairs of underwear.
It's also amusing that Patrick and Sandy wear the same underwear as SpongeBob, and the game pokes fun at this too.
Don't think SpongeBob's underwear fits quite right.
Nothing like sharing the, health amongst your close friends.
Ew. Can't believe I'm wearing SpongeBob's underwear.
You know there's such a thing as being too close, right?
Because you're gullible, I'm gonna help you out. and of course make a small profit in return.
Now what about those shiny objects? Well, these are found out in the open, in tiki boxes or dropped by defeated enemies. If you return a certain amount to Mr. Krabs, he'll grant you a golden spatula.
That's quality craftsmanship, that is.
And he'll gradually increase the requested amount as the game progresses.
Your treasure chest's looking a bit light, boy.
Now and again, you'll also encounter these clams, that won't let you access a certain area unless you feed them a set number of shiny objects. Feed them the desired amount, and they'll be happy as, well, a clam, I suppose. You'll also occasionally find Patrick's lost socks.
A bunch of robots came through here and stole my whole sock collection.
Yes, more underwear. If you return to Patrick every time you find 10 of these, he'll also give you a golden spatula.
Here's a golden back scratcher.
Spatula.
I don't speak Italian.
Although precisely why he needs you to find these socks is a bit of a mystery, considering, well, you know, he doesn't wear any.
Smells like something weird is afoot here. And it's not the socks.
One of the first locations we get to explore is the Jellyfish Fields. Here, Squidward is stung by a jellyfish, and we need to journey to the top of Spork Mountain to retrieve some king jellyfish jelly to treat his wounds.
And oh my gosh, you're bald!
I've always been bald.
The enemies in this game are of course robots, against whom we are waging war.
That's right, it's Robot Wars.
Slamming in! You can see it starting to make an impression!
No, not that Robot Wars!
The crowd are wondering what's happened here. This isn't what they came to see.
These enemy robots bear a surprising resemblance to the enemies in the movie game. No, the enemies aren't all robots in that game, but their moves are pretty much identical. I mean, the chomp bots have smelly green doggy breath. Just like the foggers. The various enemies throughout the game require certain attacks.
Somehow I don't think he needs a hand.
And some require the use of abilities you learn as the game progresses. In any case, they're not too difficult to beat, but there are a hell of a lot of them.
Rust in pieces!
Help! They're making me hit myself!
Eventually, we encounter a slide that we need to go down to rescue Patrick, who's surrounded by robots. SpongeBob slides down on his, tongue, I guess. And again, the animation here is exactly the same as in the movie game. What's more, you can activate these shortcut boxes, one at the top of the slide and one at the bottom. Once both have been passed, you can use them as shortcuts. There are many of these throughout the game, and once again, this is a concept that was reused in
the movie game. Yes, I think we get the point.
Oh yeah, I found this for you. I don't know what it is, but it looks important.
This level is the first time we switch to Patrick, and your main attack sees Patrick whack enemies with his stomach. Otherwise, his moves are also largely the same as in, you know, that game.
You know the one I mean?
Right down to his ability to throw fruit.
I pushed the big shiny button!
And that also includes freeze fruit to temporarily freeze water. You can also daze and throw enemies, which is cool. One other thing I want to talk about regarding the collectibles is the tikis. And yes, these also bear a substantial similarity to the crates in the movie game.
Yes, I know that's hard to absorb.
The red thunder tikis merely need to be touched. After a few seconds, they'll explode. Just like the thunder barrels.
Macho stuff.
In that game that shall not be named.
There are also tikis that shrink and disappear as you approach them, similar to Plankton's supply computers in the movie game. These can either be taken out from a distance, such as by using Patrick's throw move or Sandy's lasso. Or SpongeBob can deftly sneak upon them by lightly tilting the left analog stick. Eventually we reach the top of Spork Mountain, and need to defeat the King Jellyfish.
I guess this is what you call a battle royal. Float like a clam, sting like a jellyfish.
We can do this simply by avoiding its attacks and hitting it when it's vulnerable.
Ouch, that's got a sting.
Once it's hit, it also releases smaller jellyfish, and the weird grunting noise it makes as it does this is really unsettling. It's kind of like it's giving birth at will.
Truly disgusting.
That's birth for you.
Before long, the King Jellyfish surrenders, and we can take the jelly to Squidward, who gives us a spatula as a reward. With enough spatulas, we can visit downtown Bikini Bottom, where we meet Mrs. Puff.
The robots are destroying downtown Bikini Bottom. We have to evacuate!
In exchange for a spatula, we need to locate all the steering wheels for her so the residents can escape.
Number 1 in the Bikini Bottom scavenger hunt, 3 years running. Thank you.
I do like the humorous designs of the NPCs, although the way their gazes fix on you as you walk by is low-key creepy. Hello?
Did you want something?
It's also kind of funny that you can hit them with absolutely no consequences.
Ugh, classic. Always a treat.
This town is full of idiots.
Now and again, you'll need to use the sponge ball. While this ability was restricted to mini-games in the movie game, here you occasionally need to become a ball to complete certain tasks in a time limit, or fit through certain spaces. Mr. Krabs also promises you a bonus spatula if you destroy the tikis and collect the shiny objects around the sea needle.
Ultimate wedgie experience!
This requires the use of another familiar ability, the bungee wedgie.
Really wedgie it on in there.
I might be wrong here, but I swear they improved the bungee for the movie game. This is fine, but I found it a little awkward trying to aim SpongeBob to hit the tikis. It would help if there was some kind of crosshair to see exactly what's underneath you, and it doesn't help that SpongeBob simply won't shut up.
I've never been more tempted to remove somebody's pants. Not even Henry Cavill.
Holy Dutchman's ghost! That gap looks impossible! And impassable!
As I mentioned earlier, another highlight of this game is the ability to play as Sandy, who we need to play as to reach the lighthouse.
Just like a bit of roping to get the heart pumping.
She can use her lasso to attack from a distance, and also use it to glide following a double jump to cross long distances.
There's another one.
You'll also encounter these grapples in the shape of Texas that you can use to swing. It's refreshing to play as Sandy, especially considering her moves are rather different to SpongeBob and Patrick's.
And it's fortunately easy to get into the, swing of things.
Once the lighthouse has been cleared of robots, we can not only collect a spatula, but also the last wheel for Mrs. Puff, meaning the people can now evacuate.
Here's the golden spatula that I promised you.
Where there's a wheel, there's a way.
With enough spatulas, we can then go to Goo Lagoon.
A sun-drenched beach of sludge at the bottom of the sea.
That's right, pack your things, we're off to the seaside. Hey, wait a minute.
Is it still called the seaside when we're under the sea?
And yes, everyone who commented after the last video, I know the underwater water is goo and toxic. I said I know. For the last time, I know.
Message received and fully absorbed. Fully. Believe me.
A big robot stole everybody's sunscreen.
Here, Larry the Lobster needs us to activate the towers to deflect the sun's rays.
Why, you ask? Well, allow me to shed some light on the subject.
This is to direct the beam of light at a robot positioned on an out-of-reach island. This task is honestly one of the most boring in the game, simply because it just involves bubble bashing some buttons over and over, but it's thankfully pretty simple.
Oh no! The children's balloons have been overfilled!
Mrs. Puff also has a task for you, as you need to burst some balloons that are carrying children away. I find it really funny that the kids aren't in danger or anything. Mrs. Puff just can't stand to see them having a good time.
It looks like they're having a lot of fun.
Yes, too much fun if you ask me.
Sorry to let you down, kids. I'm gonna have to burst your balloon.
This task can be a little irritating when the kids are floating over the goo, as you need to wait for them to float overhead to hit them. If there's one thing I hate in games, it's having to wait for very slow things, and it ruins an otherwise easy task.
You might say it leaves me feeling deflated.
Otherwise, I really love this location. The pier is particularly colourful. There's a variety of stuff to do, including a fun slide and a whack-a-tiki game in exchange for a sock. The atmosphere is great. It really feels like you're on a summer vacation. I also appreciate that the music is clearly a nod to Wipeout by the Safaris. This level is a lot of fun, despite the robot uprising and the impending doom.
What better place to bury your head in the sand than the beach?
Eventually, more of Bikini Bottom opens up to us, but first we find ourselves at the Poseidome, in which we need to defeat a giant robot Sandy.
A huge murderous robot shaped like a squirrel.
Look, it's a giraffe.
Go SpongeBob! Kick that squirrel's nuts! and bolts.
The boss fights are pretty basic in the sense that you just need to avoid the boss's attacks before hitting their vulnerable spots.
SpongeBob has an opening, but will he get the drop on the robot?
However, I do appreciate that the enemy's moves evolve and change throughout the fight. At one point the scoreboard collapses and you switch to Patrick. After you've removed Sandybot's helmet, you need to throw it into the broken scoreboard to electrocute her.
What a shocking takedown by Patrick!
Initially though, I completely got the wrong idea and instead threw it back to the Sandybot. Yeah, hi, sorry, I think you dropped this.
Honestly, I really wasn't thinking straight. Looks like the mecha squirrel ain't the only one with a screw loose.
That was quite a battle.
With more areas opened up to us, we can visit Sandy's tree dome, and this is hilarious. Just like in the show, SpongeBob dries up, and his expression absolutely killed me.
Them there robots busted up the glass, SpongeBob.
Destroy all the robots, and Sandy will give you another spatula.
I suppose you'll be needing this more than me.
Hey, wait, you mean she had this on her the whole time, and she didn't think to say anything?
How many more of these things has she got squirreled away?
There's also the police station, where you can view all of the game's enemies as soon as you've encountered them, which is pretty neat. We can also head to Shady Shoals Rest Home, where Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy have a task for us, and take us to the Murmur Lair.
It's a good thing you showed up, young sponge of goodness.
Here the robots have taken over the security system, and it's our job to shut it down by pushing a lot of buttons.
Well, why him? We're perfectly capable superheroes.
Because it's Thursday and we have a whole bunch of doctor's appointments.
One thing I noticed here was the disco floor hazard. If you touch a red square, you'll be,
Well, deader than disco. It's literally murder on a dance floor.
Oh. And this hazard was reused for part of the bubble-blowing baby hunt level of the movie game. Talk about the worst discos ever.
I, for one, am not having a ball.
Speaking of balls, by this point in the game, SpongeBob has unlocked the Bubble Bowl ability, which allows him to aim and throw a bubble ball to hit things from afar and activate switches. And yes, this is pretty much identical to the Sponge Bowl in the movie game. Once you've learned this move, if you return to Goo Lagoon, you can complete a skee ball challenge for some additional shiny objects. Although this isn't necessary, considering shiny objects can be found literally everywhere. Anyway, one part of the Murmur Lair that I truly hated was Mr. Krabs' task.
Look, boy, there's gold under that glass.
In order to release the spatula from the glass dome, you need to guide a large ball until it lands in a cup at the end of the course. But the ball is so slow, and it's a little trial and error. Sometimes you don't know what needs doing next until you actually see what happens, and by that point the ball has fallen off the course and you need to start over. Ugh. Yeah, this task is a chore.
They really dropped the ball on this one.
Before long, the security system is deactivated, but unfortunately, this also deactivates the VCS.
That's Villain Containment System.
Is that bad?
And one of the villains escapes.
He's your archenemy, Prawn.
Did someone call?
This boss fight is one of the most irritating in my opinion. You need to take Prawn out using the bubble bowl when a clear path appears in the disco floor. It's not as easy as it sounds though, as there's so much going on. There are so many hazards, and you don't have much time to act when the disco floor path appears. Fortunately, it only takes 3 bowling balls to turn this prawn into a cocktail.
This is not fair! I've got the frozen wedgie for this!
3 strikes and you're out.
One of the toughest locations to my recollection was Rock Bottom. Here, Mrs. Puff explains that some robots have stolen priceless artwork from the museum, and it's your job, obviously, to retrieve them all. There are also sleeping robots introduced here. If you enter their light, they'll wake up and attack you. The idea is to sneak up to them as SpongeBob, throw objects at them as Patrick, or lasso them as Sandy. In this level, we need to use SpongeBob and then Sandy to make our way over to the museum, while here, we need to deactivate the security system to reach the spatula. And this seems like a good time to talk about one of the most irritating enemies in the game, Monsoon. These guys float around with an umbrella and attack you by deploying clouds of electrical energy. Until now, they've been pretty bearable, but here, well...
Sorry to rain on your parade.
They're so awkward to avoid while swinging on the museum lights. I have to say, overall, I really didn't enjoy this level. It's pretty tough, and there's a lot of platforming. In retrospect, I might even consider this to be the worst location, so you might say Rock Bottom is aptly named. One part I do like though is that when you approach the vending machine, a bus appears before swiftly speeding away. This is a direct reference to the episode Rock Bottom, in which SpongeBob constantly fails to catch the bus. Although I imagine anyone unfamiliar with this might be deeply confused about what's happening. In any case, it still wasn't quite enough to elevate the level for me. It's not really terrible, I just didn't like it as much as most other levels. By contrast, one of my favourite locations is Sand Mountain,
where sea creatures go to enjoy an afternoon of falling down.
This level consists of 3 ski slopes, at the bottom of which there are robots to take care of in exchange for golden spatulas.
How can I ski with those ugly things beating everyone up?
First, there's Guppy Mound, in which we have the option to beat Mrs. Puff's time down the slope.
Congratulations!
Then there's Flounder Hill, in which Bubble Buddy also has a time trial for us.
If you can beat my time down the hill, I'll give you a golden spatula.
And if you thought he'd be just as easy to beat, well, I'd hate to burst your bubble, buddy.
This slope feels much more complex than the previous one. There are various paths you can take, and I think overall I probably spent more time here than any other slope. In addition to the time trial, there are also 8 Sandmen to destroy in exchange for a sock. This is also harder than you'd think, as the Sandmen are on certain parts of the slope that you may not encounter depending on your choice of route. What's more, if you fall off the slope, the Sandmen reset, so you have to start all over again. I must say, the episode references in this game are admirable. I'm not as clued up on SpongeBob as I am the likes of the Looney Tunes games, but it seems as though the game is abundant with nods to the show.
Life's as extreme as you wanna make it!
Finally, on Sand Mountain itself, it's Larry the Lobster who asks if you can beat his time.
My time down this slope is unbeatable.
Larry the Lobster sure seems athletic, but with 2 wins under your belt, I'm sure you'll claw your way to victory. Get it, claw? Because lobster? I'm sorry.
Wow, that robot looks like Patrick.
Before long, we encounter another boss battle, this time against the giant robot Patrick.
SpongeBob, hurry! Squidward's in more trouble than a chili relleno in a pan of grease.
This time it's up to SpongeBob and Sandy to save Squidward, who's been frozen stiff.
Great Barrier Reef!
As with the other boss fights, this starts out pretty simply. You merely have to avoid the flying green goo he shoots at you.
I guess this makes him a shooting star.
Look at that! The robot's made himself dizzy!
Then you need to hit Patrick Bot's vulnerable spot, humorously lampshaded with a kick me here note.
Oh, mercy.
But just when SpongeBob is about to save Squidward, he's also frozen, meaning Sandy needs to step in.
Get ready for a hot fudge twister, Texas style.
The fight gets tougher as the robot floods the industrial park, and you need to use the grapples to drop debris into the goo so you can make your way over to him. Overall, this level is a gas. Literally.
Consider yourself ice creamed.
The final parts of Bikini Bottom are definitely the toughest. We need to find as many spatulas as possible to enter the final location, the Chum Bucket, and there are still a few places to visit in order to do so.
Bubble Buddy, I bet the next move you teach me will be the best one ever.
Abso-positive-a-lutely, SpongeBob!
Super pinky shake on it?
I would if I had pinkies.
It's also at this point when Bubble Buddy teaches us a new move, the Cruise Bubble. By pressing L1, you can guide a bubble like a missile.
Pushing a single button is the most satisfying. Push, 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 push.
And yes, this is pretty much exactly like the Sonic Wave guitar move in the movie game. There's a really surreal level here that sees you journey inside SpongeBob's dream.
Well then, first thing I'm gonna do is dream myself up a mustache. Ow! Thanks, Gary. It does make me look more rugged, doesn't it?
And the floating spiky cubes are extremely reminiscent of the floating block challenges from the movie game.
You might say they're a chip off the old block.
Who puts challenges in their own dreams?
We can also access Sandy's dream, which is basically one long slide dedicated to Texas, laden with hazards such as pie-throwing flying cows and steaming piles of manure.
Honestly, you can't make this shit up. Well, I guess Sandy can.
Another interesting dream is Squidward's. Here we need to hop across the clarinet's musical notes to the golden spatula, which is rather conspicuously located here, on Squidward's massive face. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect to see this.
It's a little, on the nose, don't you think?
Mr. Krabs' dream takes place in the Krusty Krab.
I can't escape work anywhere.
How imaginative. And simply requires you to fight all the robots. Defeating them makes the floating Krabby Patties separate and create platforms for you to reach the Duplicatortrons, which are spawning enemies. And finally, we get to enter Patrick's dream, and this is very amusing as it's almost totally empty.
Your challenge is to find the golden spatula!
You're holding it.
You did it!
This genuinely made me laugh, and reminded me of the final combat challenge in the movie game.
Patrick, I've gotta go. Gary, needs another bath.
It's nice to have some light relief, even if there is barely any light in here.
Anyway, I think it's about time we vacate this vacuous void and get back to reality. One of the toughest locations we need to explore is the Kelp Forest. I actually really like this location, but it took me a little longer than some other levels due to the layout.
Hi, Mrs. Puff. Driving class isn't out here today, is it?
First of all, Mrs. Puff has been holding driving lessons out here to hide from SpongeBob, but her students have gone missing.
These robots showed up and scared all the students, campers off into the forest.
We just need to find and save them all. Meanwhile, in the swamp, Mr. Krabs has a task for Patrick.
I'm trying to return 3 stone tikis to this pedestal so I can get to the kelp cave across that bridge.
Here we need to find all 3 stone tikis to open up the rest of the level. This took me longer than it probably should have, due to one of the tikis being situated in an awkward spot. The only way I managed to get the tiki to the pedestal was by bouncing over the cliff here, which felt a little awkward to me. I guess I like this location more for its atmosphere and setting than its gameplay. Looking back on this level, it's a little frustrating. Anyway, with the path opened up, we can progress to the Kelp Caves, where we meet Barnacle Boy.
I'm trying to recover my lost energy crystals that power my new secret superhero power.
It's crystal clear what we need to do here.
Indeed, using both SpongeBob and Patrick, we need to make our way through the caves and find the crystals. What a surprise! There's a lot of back and forth carrying stone tikis here, and it's pretty tiresome, but fortunately it's over fairly quickly. I'd like to say it gets better from here, but the next part is one of my least favourite parts of the game. Once outside, we need to slide down a vine for a spatula. And for an extra spatula, we need to try and beat Mermaid Man's time limit.
You should try it! What a hoot!
This slide is one of the absolute worst in my opinion. The twists and turns are insane. It's ridiculously easy to fall off.
This very nearly ruined one of my favourite levels, but I'll, let it slide.
Now those robots have got their own pirate ship, and they're blasting away at each other.
Eventually we can also unlock the Flying Dutchman's graveyard. This is definitely the creepiest area of the game.
It quite frankly scares the SquarePants off me. Good job I'm wearing several layers.
It's also fairly difficult in parts, especially the wall jumping. It's not quite as painful as the wall jumping in Planktopolis, but it's still pretty irritating. One of the most memorable parts of this level is a part in which we need to take out the robot's ship. First we need to destroy their power generators before returning to the Dutchman's ship and activating the cannons. Despite our helping him out, the Flying Dutchman then turns on us and keeps hold of the spatula.
If you want this gold thingy so bad, come and get it.
You're on.
This of course results in a boss fight, in which Sandy needs to avoid the ghost's attacks and then lasso him, somehow. Do this 3 times and he'll,
Well, give up the ghost. And more importantly, the spatula.
All right, you little rapscallions. Here's the golden spatula.
Once we have enough spatulas, we can enter the Chum Bucket, where we encounter a giant robot SpongeBob.
That's the most hideous thing I've ever seen!
Plankton thinks he's finally managed to get the robots to obey him, but in a shocking twist, the robots are actually obeying the robot Plankton.
They're obeying me.
First we need to take out the giant SpongeBot by hitting his weak spots.
And the robot is down!
You need to avoid his attacks without falling to the ground.
Oh, that's gotta sting!
If you do, when you make your way back up again, the robot will begin his series of attacks again.
No, you don'ts are destroying my beautiful bride. We were supposed to get married next week.
Did he say married?
And just when it seems you've beaten him, it's still not over yet. The robot gets bigger, and SpongeBob chases the robot plankton inside.
This is just getting too weird for me.
This final part of the game sees you having to defeat the giant robot from the inside, avoiding robot plankton's attacks and destroying all of the fuses.
Now there's a large suspicious piece of mechanical equipment you don't see every day.
The later fuses require the use of the cruise bubble to destroy them. Overall, this level is moderately challenging, but nowhere near as difficult as a Neptune boss in my opinion.
That's it, SpongeBob! You got him with that one!
Anyway, before too long, the SpongeBot is vanquished. Plankton's Duplicatortron then proceeds to make duplicates of Robot Plankton.
Shut up, you stupid robot! Who are you calling stupid? I went to community college!
Who basically wind up stuck in a loop arguing with each other.
Ouch! We won! Who wants to get ice cream?
Oh wow, we made it to the end?
There's still work to be done out there. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy wouldn't stop, and neither will I.
Wait, that's not the end? Flip!
Flip indeed. We need to find all those golden spatulas. While most of them are pretty straightforward to find, Patrick's socks are the worst. Collecting socks doesn't reward you with any bonus content, but they are most comparable to the chests in the movie game.
Finders keepers!
Many socks are hidden out in the open, but there are also many that can be unlocked after completing certain tasks first.
Say hello to my little bubble friend.
Much like the chests, these tasks can be rather obscure.
Really, finding all these things is a chore. They really make you, well, work your socks off.
Sometimes you need to destroy all the items in a room and the sock will be given to you as a reward. The only sock I actually had to look at a walkthrough for was this one in the Kelp Forest. You need to throw a bubble bowl and take out a line of these tikis in one go for the sock to appear. There's nothing to really indicate that this is required though. It would help if there was some kind of hint that this needs to be done. That said, these tasks never reach the same level of obscurity as in the movie game. That toaster thing was ridiculous.
Now they're back home, safe where they belong.
If you obtain all the golden spatulas, there is one extra bonus cutscene that can be viewed at the end of the game.
Are you ready, kids?
Either by completing the final boss again, or by selecting the SpongeBall Arena level in Bikini Bottom, which is a short fun level that plays as the credits roll. In this final clip, all of the characters sing the SpongeBob theme song and party. All besides Squidward and Plankton, of course.
I have to say this is a nice touch, but it does feel somewhat lacking considering how much time it takes to get all the spatulas. So I guess it is rewarding, but it does feel a bit disproportionate on the flip side.
Smells like victory.
Minor issues aside, this is fantastic. I am genuinely impressed. Sure, you could argue it gets a little repetitive, but I never once found it boring. The scale is impressive for a licensed game, and the dialogue is constantly lively and amusing.
There's definitely something funny going on here. And I don't mean you. Something else funny.
This certainly isn't without its frustrating aspects, but the effort that's been invested in it is clear to see. It maintains the silly and surreal atmosphere of the show, and I can see why it's earned itself something of a cult status. However, there are aspects of this game that I do think they improved for the movie game. The dumbbells, for example, are collected to upgrade your abilities. Here the shiny objects represent a similar collectible, but don't really serve much purpose other than feeding clams like toll booths and earning spatulas from Mr. Krabs.
Do you want to trade shiny objects for a golden spatula?
But if you manage to collect a whopping 40,000 shiny objects, you can purchase a ticket at the movie theatre in Bikini Bottom.
One movie ticket, my good man.
In which you can view a slideshow of concept art. So at least they give you something. In all, Battle for Bikini Bottom is the quintessential SpongeBob game, at least from the ones I've played. And considering how good the movie game is, that's a lot to absorb.
I am one unbeatable sponge.
At ease, soldier. Dismissed.
Hey everyone! I feel like this one has been a long time coming, but I wanted to make it as good as I possibly could, as usual. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, although I know it would have made a lot more sense to cover this one before the movie game. But hey, I'm an idiot. But this game was great. There was so much to talk about. And by the way, one thing I didn't mention in the review is that the magic wishing shell at the beginning is never addressed again. I was expecting there to be some kind of callback to it, considering SpongeBob and Patrick think they caused the robot uprising. And sure, it's an amusing gag to begin with, but I kind of feel like it would have been more narratively satisfying if their guilt consumed them. Maybe Plankton could have laid the blame on them and caused them to be social pariahs or something. It's an interesting concept, if not entirely original. But they didn't do anything with this part of the story, which is a little strange. Still, you don't really play a game like this for the story, I guess. The game itself is still a hell of a lot of fun, and honestly one of the funniest games I've ever played. It's not often a game actually makes me laugh, but this one succeeded a number of times.
Can I get a cookie?
No.
Anyway, as always, a big thank you to my patrons, Anthony Gallagher, Eagle, 3Spooky5Me, Volico72, and Matthew Shaw. Thank you to my free patrons, Callum Cairns, Hannah Kingdon, Michael Shields, Dennis, GamerKid96, and Mood Faiq. And of course to my channel members, 3Spooky5Me and Leo Tucker. Hope you enjoyed, guys. This was quite a big video for me. I'll be back with another one as soon as I can be. I've got a bunch of stuff lined up, and if you really like the channel and what I'm doing, please consider becoming a patron or a channel member. It's obviously not mandatory by any means. I appreciate your views regardless. All your likes, shares, and whatnot mean a hell of a lot, and I'm hoping to maintain this channel for as long as I can. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye for now.